Hi, everybody. This is Hondo Carpenter from Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast here at Orchard Park, where the Raiders were just demolished 38-10. Got a lot of observations. Let me just quickly say, because we are growing and have tens of thousands of new viewers, the views reflected by the host may not reflect yours, but they're mine, and that's why it's my podcast. So let's get right into it. This was a game that no one anticipated the Raiders would win. When the schedule came out, I marked it as a loss. When I gave my prediction on Friday, I marked it as a loss. They certainly had a chance to win this game. But we said before the game, they had to attack the edge, which was crucial and vitally important, and that they had to keep it close because all the pressure was on the Bills and get it into the fourth quarter. And then that's how they were going to win the game. But we knew it was a long shot, and it was. And the 38-10 score shows you that they didn't keep it close. It got out of control. There are several things we're going to talk about today, several things that I think are vitally important in our analysis. The first of all is I had said before the game, talk about the edge. They come out, they go immediately to Trey Tucker on a jet sweep for 34 yards. It was a big one. That's something that, they'd been working on, and it was a play that was there and it worked. The Bills did a tremendous job of adjusting. And now I don't know how much you get to see at home, but of spreading their defensive out. They knew that that's their weakness. And so they knew that's where the Raiders were going to attack. And after that first drive where the Raiders used a screen, which is something that they'd worked on for this week, and that jet sweep, they went right down the field, marched, and scored. Then you saw the defense, and we're going to spend a lot of time on the defense in a minute. Actually, not a lot of time. We're going to talk about them in a minute. And we saw what the Raiders were doing, attacking the edge. Now, I've said all along, and I know it made people angry, the Bills are a more talented football team. The Raiders are young, and they're coming, but they're not there yet. That's why I said if Jimmy's healthy for all 17, I think they win 9 games. I haven't wavered one bit on that. Nothing I saw today changed my opinion. In fact, if anything, there's a lot I saw today that reinforces that opinion. But moving on, the Bills just made quality adjustments and had better players. For example, let's just go to the defensive side for a minute. The Raiders are getting nothing out of Tyree Wilson right now, the first-round draft pick. In fairness, because you have to be fair, he missed 80% of camp, but I did interviews with him this week in the locker room in West Virginia. You can go watch those, where he said, there is no excuses, and he's got to get better. But the Raiders are getting nothing from him, literally nothing. Now, you saw several times on fourth down, the Raiders were able to stuff and get stops at the point of the attack. I'm going to say something to you that you just watched the team score 38 points and win a football game. And I don't believe it was the defense that cost the Raiders today. Now, do I think that they got mauled? I do. Do I think that they were perfect? No, not far from it. Do I think they need a lot more from a lot more people? Yes. But I think when you saw some offensive inadequacies and inability to drive the football, they put their defense in some bad positions. Again, I didn't expect the Raiders to come in here and hold the Buffalo Bills to 21 points. I thought the Bills would get somewhere between 21 and 28. Okay, so your team gives up 38. Okay, but several times they got stops on fourth down. The Raiders couldn't do anything with it. Several times the Raiders' offense's inability to do anything, it was anemic. Quite frankly, at no time in the second half could you have arrested the Las Vegas Raiders offense, and had there been enough evidence to convict them of being an NFL offense. It was terrible. And they're better than that. They have too many weapons better than that. They could get no what happened was, and we're going to get into this analysis, they decided, like Broncos, we're not going to let Josh Jacobs beat us. So they loaded the box, which is what you expect. They brought pressure all the time. So, hey, if it's not a run, we're going to have pressure on the quarterback, forcing Jimmy to make quick reads. Now, today, there was another screen pass. Jimmy makes a bad pass, gives an interception. No excuse. It is what it is. But Josh could not get running, and it wasn't because of Josh. You had more guys in the box, and the Raiders had blockers. because they sold out. But when a team does that, you have to be able to punish them. I put in my Twitter feed early in the game, use the pass to set up the run when they're selling out to stop the run. The problem is the Raiders just could not get anything going with quick reads. Yeah, they would get a couple things here and there, and it was just not good. There were multiple times today where Hunter Renfrow was open, multiple. But because of the pressure, Jimmy has to make a quick read. And if they're showing double coverage to Hunter, and you may remember I talked to you about this in the preseason about the pre-snap read, post-snap read. Well, when you are literally getting the ball in your hand and you're Jimmy Garoppolo and you don't even have your first step and there's pressure, you're not going to make many post-snap reads. So that's on him. That's on the offensive line, but that's where Josh McDaniels is going to have to, keep some guys in, keep a fullback in. You saw a lot of jumbo today with Thayer Mumford, trying to get some protection for Jimmy. When Jimmy could get time, he did okay. But overall, let's just look at his stats. It was very unimpressive. I'll grab these for you super quick. And but overall in the day, Jimmy Garoppolo was 16 of 24, 185 yards, 2 interceptions, but a quarterback rating of 68.9. Not going to win with that. Now, I think some of that's absolutely Jimmy's fault, but a lot of it is the game plan of the Bills. So, here's my question. If they're coming with quick pressure, what about some quick throws? What about if you're not going to do a jet sweep because they're spreading you out? What about doing some quick tosses to the flats, which is where they just did not attack today? I think there's more that they could have done with Hunter. I think Devontae still had a decent game. I think there was more they could have done there. I was very disappointed in adjustments. I think that there could have been. I think there were some great adjustments made by Buffalo. I don't think there was a lot of adjustments made when it comes to the offense of the Las Vegas Raiders. That was very disappointing today. I understand you're going against a better team. I get it. I understand that this is a game that if you won, it would have been an upset. I get that as well. But still, this was a game that you had a puncher's chance in. Now, for some of you that are young and don't know what that term means, it means, you may go into a fight and I'll use an example. Mike Tyson years ago, for those of you that are young, was invincible. And he goes into a fight with James Buster Douglas. And by all accounts, Tyson should have killed him. But Buster had one thing going, and that was he was a puncher. And he knew, I'm going to get beat up. But if I can connect, then I got a chance to knock him out. And that's what Buster did. This was one of those things. The Bills are the better team. Nobody would be shocked if they were in the Super Bowl. Losing here should not have you give up on the season. Losing here is not the end of the world. There's still 15 games left on a team I think can win 9, maybe steal 1. So you won one last week, you should have won. You lost one this week, you should have lost. Okay. So you move on. But I think there's a lot of things. I think Josh McDaniels is going to have to take a long, hard look at the film. To his credit, after the game, he wanted nothing of anyone else's fault. You could tell he was very angry with himself. We're going to have that video for you about the adjustments of figuring out what to do. But there is a danger in overvaluing a big loss against a very good team and overvaluing a big win against a very bad team. Now, I don't think the Broncos were a very bad team. I'm not saying that, but I'm just making the point. It wasn't. I think there's a lot to learn here, but I think the Raiders themselves offensively hurt themselves today. Sure, the defense gave up 38. I'm not pretending they didn't. But the defense, there were some other things. I saw a couple plays where the Bill running back breaks away from the line of scrimmage, and I saw Marcus Peters just stand there and watch the play happen. I understand he's an old school defensive back, and I get that. I understand he's on a 1-year deal because they didn't feel like they had enough physicality in a Nate Hobbs and a Jacorian Bennett. But you're paid $5 million a year. You got to get in there, put your helmet in there, and stop somebody. That was disappointing to me, and very disappointing. But I want to talk about a few things because there was a lot that stood out. I thought, I thought the screen early was a really good play. I knew that was coming. They'd been working on it, as well as the jet sweep. I like the way the Raiders came out on the attack. They came out aggressive, and to me, that's how this game should have went. Now you're in the fourth quarter, you're down 21. Josh Jacobs has run for negative yardage, and you're running the ball up the middle. To me, I'd rather lose by 50 than to lose by 28 and roll over. That's when I would have said, okay, you know what? We're down 21 in the fourth quarter. It's 12 minutes to go. Let's go. Let's throw the ball. Let's go on the attack. You have nothing to lose. I would have liked to have seen that. The point of the matter is it probably would have made zero difference. But those are things about on the attack. Hey, we're not rolling over. I thought a couple things today that you probably are not going to believe, but if you DVR'd the game, go back and watch it. Colton Miller, there were times when they were loading up multiple guys on multiple places. And so there were times where I watched him on two occasions take on two guys. He's literally taking one guy head on and has an arm out here or an arm out here. I thought Colton just battled today. He didn't want to hear that. I interviewed him in the locker room. He didn't want to hear that, but he did. And I think that's deserving of some credit. I thought Robert Spillane, now there was a couple things they did today, and I don't understand why they didn't do more. They had two big blitzes trying to create pressure. I told you leading up to this game, you have to force Josh Allen to make quick decisions and beat himself. The Jets did that last week. Now the Jets have a better defense than the Raiders. But there were two big blitzes that the Raiders had that got home, one with Divine Diablo, one with Robert Spillane, both sacks. I would have wanted to see more. I mean, you're down 21-0. What the heck? Attack. Go out there. And I think sometimes I'm not a fan of a bend but don't break. I'm a fan of let's go out there and fight. You saw early, and then I think as momentum started to shift to the Bills, you saw go away from an attack and let's kind of see what happens. That's not the way this game's played. This game's played. I'm going to go out there and punch you in the face. This is football. It's not soccer. I'm going to punch you in the face, and I'm going to make you deal with me. And I was disappointed to see the Raiders move away from that. Let's talk about a couple things. I thought one thing that was fascinating was you saw the Buffalo Bills coaching staff outcoach the Raiders. You saw the Buffalo players outplay the Raiders. They were outcoached and outplayed. Now, some of that is because they have better players. But I think what was fascinating to me was the Raiders had a measuring stick game now. They know if we want to become a Super Bowl team, whether it's the Chiefs or a Bills type team, this is the standard of which they play. And when you're a young team like the Raiders, I think that's a big sign. Now, I'm going to say right now, Max Crosby, they moved him all over the place. And wherever he went, again, I don't know what you can see at home. Josh Allen's pointing him out. That guy balled out today. And he was double and triple teamed the entire game. And the Bills were basically saying on offense, we're not going to let Josh Jacobs beat us. And on defense, we're not going to let Max Crosby beat us. Now, you may know this. Bill Belichick is famous for, he does his game plans. We're going to take what you do best. We're going to take it away and make you beat us another way. That's what the Bills did today. Your best player on defense is Max Crosby. Your best offensive player or best weapon is Josh Jacobs. We're going to take those away and make you beat us. And the Raiders didn't. Simple. And I think sometimes when you see a game like this, you think, man, everybody played terrible. There wasn't. There were some guys that played well. I thought Jacorian Bennett and Nate Hobbs, two young receivers, unlike Peters, very physical, stepped up. Young guys make young guy mistakes. But I think for the most part, there were some plays that I'm sure that they would want back. But, man, there were some stops on fourth down where you saw JB, Jacorian Bennett, and Nate, making some plays, getting in there, getting their noses in on some stuff. This was not the sky has fallen loss. I mean, the score was brutal. He lost by 4 touchdowns. And everybody had a part in that. There is not one, you can't blame this specifically on offense, specifically on defense, coaching. I thought Daniel Carlson was really good. I thought AJ Cole was very good. Special teams was very good. I don't think they take any blame on this loss. But, other guys have to step up. Other guys have to make plays. If you're getting reps, you got to show up. You got to make them. Now, if they had lost 38-35, there'd be a lot of people saying, oh man, look how well they battled. The point is, at the end of the year, you don't remember how big the loss is. You just remember it was a loss. So they got to learn from it. Let's get into this. I thought DeAndre Carter was going to be a little bit bigger part of the game plan. They used Trey for some of his reps as well. I expect to see more of him coming forward. Again, I mentioned earlier in the second quarter, on first down, they get 7 yards. Then they come in, and on second down, they run the ball up the middle. And this is towards the end of the second half, and you're trying to get something going. And go on the attack. I understand we got to stick to our game plan. Buffalo wants us out of your game plan. Well, your game plan has you getting your butt kicked. So if it's not working, the definition of stupidity is doing the same thing and expecting different results. I'm not calling anyone dumb. I'm not calling people stupid. But at some point, you got to say, okay, game plan be damned. We got to go on the attack. And you just didn't see that. And that was disappointing today. I thought Marcus Epps today played very solid. He made a couple of some really big plays. There were a couple times where he gets burned, and at least that's the way it would look on the TV coverage, but it was where, he left his guy to come over and help because somebody else had made a mistake. But I don't think that Marcus played terrible in the least bit. And again, I put more of this on the offense and coaching than I do on defense. I had said to you all week that the Raiders needed to attack the edge. That was factual. That was their game plan coming in. I'm going to be putting a video up with Jimmy Garoppolo where I asked him about that. And when Buffalo made the adjustments, then you got to adjust. Now, there's a play in football called a slant, which is where you have a tight end or you've got a slot guy. And when you're getting a ton of pressure, he takes 2 steps, the quarterback takes 1 step, throws to him. You could have went to slants today to stop that pressure. And those would have worked. Those were there, the flats. Again, if you could have gotten Jimmy anytime, I would have loved to see some attacking with slants with Hunter or Devontae getting some guys in there. But it was like, nope, this is our game plan. And I understand that. But to allow a game like this, see, I'm going to go back and say this. Remember I told you in preseason, wins and losses don't matter. It's about learning. It's about schematics. It's down distance and all of that. Well, when you're down 21-0 in the fourth quarter on a game that you probably shouldn't win, nobody's really giving you a chance, and you're going to lose. At what point do you throw out your game plan and say, okay, let's go on the attack. Let's see what we can do here to make some adjustments. There was none of that. They rolled over and played dead. There were times I watched them just come walking up to the line of scrimmage. Okay, now Nick Saban told me this, and I believe it. If you're allowing it, you're coaching it. Where's the timeout to go up and go, what are you doing? We're down 21-0. What are you walking to the line of scrimmage for? So when you see that, it's being allowed. There just didn't seem to be that sense of urgency. Now, again, I want to make it clear. This isn't a game that they were expected to win. So there's no shame in going to Buffalo and losing to Buffalo to a team that could be in the Super Bowl. But man, when you don't attack, when there's no sense of urgency, when it's all right, let's just roll over and play dead. Come on now. That was disappointing. I want to get into a couple other things. I thought one of the things that stood out to me today was attitude of the players. I mean, they came in, they were loose, they were light, they were playing with house money. And I didn't notice the big change until the end of the second quarter. And to me, it wasn't a bad attitude. It wasn't a quit attitude. I'm not saying that, but it was, you saw the defense. They're rallying. And the offense, I think, just got punched in the face and had no clue. There's a adage, Mike Tyson says this, that everyone has a plan till they get punched in the face. And I remember one time, you may remember a UFC fighter. He's a friend of mine, Sugar Rashad Evans. And Rashad told me a story about how when you get punched really good and your eyes water and you have to remember where you are and what's going on for a moment. And he talked about, I asked him when he told me that, is that like a deer in the headlights thing? And he said, exactly. He's from Michigan, so he understands that analogy of a deer in the headlights. And to me, at the end of the second quarter, you started to see the Raiders offense like a deer in the headlights. I mean, the Bills just mixed it up. They were coming from every direction. They were just totally committed to that. They were not going to let Josh Jacobs beat them. And so to me, and this is a football analogy, if you know they're selling out to stop Josh Jacobs, then okay, fine. We're going to go pass to set up the run. We're going to make you quit loading the box. Guess what? If the Raiders go on the attack and they use slants and they use some other things and they get back into this game, Buffalo's going to have to make the adjustments, get the guys out of the box, then you can run the ball. Again, no shame in a loss, but I think it was disappointed in the way that they lost, that they just, and then all of a sudden you see the defense get winded and you looked over and there's the defense and they're dragging because the offense just get rid of the ball, get rid of the ball, get rid of the ball. The offense just put the defense in too many losing positions. No, the defense was not phenomenal, but they certainly didn't get any help from the offense. And I thought this was a team loss. The Raiders were outcoached and the Raiders were outplayed. Now, moving on. There is nothing in this game that makes me think for 1 second, that the Raiders aren't going to win 9 games if Jimmy stays healthy for 17. I mean, I'm in that locker room. I'm listening to them. I'm hearing them. I'm listening to what they're talking about. And I know the mood of the team. This is a good Raiders football team. They're not great. That's why I didn't think they'd make the playoffs, but they're better. And I think you saw today that they've got a lot to work on. I really challenge you later on. I'm going to put the video up of Josh McDaniels from the post game. I really encourage you to listen to it. I think a lot of Raider fans will be encouraged. He held nothing back, and he was brutal on himself. And I think, you know what? You can live with that. You don't have to like a loss, but no one thought this team was going to go 17-0. And anybody that was fair didn't necessarily think they were going to come in here and win today. But there's a lot that was not good. There was some that was. Again, special teams was phenomenal, but Daniel Carlson, AJ Cole always are. There were some players that Max Crosby absolutely balled out. I thought Colton Miller balled out. There were some guys that played well. I thought Josh Jacobs, I mean, trying to run the ball out on passing routes, his effort was there. It's just the Bills made the decision, you're not beating us. And that's where I think the entire Raider team is going to be better from this loss. And I, again, no excuses. And had they lost by 3, it's still a loss. But I was disappointed. Again, the defense, they were winded. It got brutal at the end, but the offense wasn't doing anything to help them. And that's why this is a team sport. So the Raiders now find themselves 1-1. They head back to Allegiant Stadium next week for Sunday Night Football to take on the Pittsburgh Steelers. I fully expect the Raiders to win that football game and improve to 2-1 and continue down the path that I've predicted for them. This is a loss where I think it's going to be a long 5-hour flight back to Vegas. I think you're going to have coaches that are going to be angry looking at the film of some of their decisions. I think you're going to have some coaches angry at some players. I think you're going to have some players angry, and that's okay. You just went up against a team, them in Kansas City, Philly. There's a few handful of teams that are Super Bowl contenders, and you just got your butt handed to you. And that's the National Football League. No time to pout. And they got to get back, and they got to get better. So again, if I was to pick a mantra for the game, outcoached, outplayed. Simple. You can put a Christmas bow on a turd. It's still a turd. This was a turd. And that's just what it was. It was a bad performance. There were some people that had a good one, but overall, the team lost to a potential Super Bowl contender. It is what it is. We predicted a loss. That's what it is. You just really wish you could have seen some more fight. That was the thing. I just want to see fight. This game is a testosterone fueled battle of men. And I just didn't see a lot of fight. That second half was brutal. So you move on. You burn the tape after you evaluate it. Back to Allegiant Stadium for the home opener. What should be a Raiders win to move to 2-1. And this team continues to get better. I'll tell you what, if they get to 9 wins, ain't nobody going to be complaining about a loss to Buffalo. Learn from it. Don't let this just be a loss. Let it be a loss you go back and learn from, make some adjustments, and make the team better. So from here in Orchard Park, this is Hondo Carpenter from Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation, Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast, part of the Fans First Sports Network. Thank you for taking and joining us for our complete recap today. There you go. We'll see you all week, of course, in our podcast, and next week from Allegiant Stadium, where the Raiders look to get back on track with a big win against the Steelmen. Thanks, everybody.